Alright, Gamakatsu SL12 S and 1/0. Some heavy duty thread. We're going to be using 210, flat wax and olive. Just make a little thread ball right here. There we go. We're going to be using some Congo. You can also use EP or pretty much any material that you feel like it's going to have some movement. Craft fur would work, pseudo hair would work. I prefer this because as we progress with this fly, it just blends better. It doesn't separate in the water. You want this one to be kind of long tail because we can trim at the end. This fly will require a lot of trimming just to kind of get the shape you want. And because of the design of the fly, you really need to make sure you're giving yourself enough product, enough materials in certain places to just cut it back to where you can get the density you're looking for. But you want a softer material coming out the tail. Tie that back. It's about almost 3 hook lengths long for the tail. I would say 2.5 is always a good place to start. Kind of push this back. Make sure it kind of goes on the top, bottom, and sides, not just stuck on one side or the other. You do that by pushing down on the top of the hook. Pull it back and then tie it down. Try to get this tail all nice and together. I'm going to add some bars, so I don't want it to separate later. I'm going to do it all now. Alright, I'm going to just put some bars on it. I like to get at least 4 evenly spread. Try to get them nice and saturated. Non-toxic marker, any kind you have, or just use Sharpie. There we go. That's a good start. Before we go further, I'm going to use a little bit of Crystal Flash. You can use Flash Shabu or any kind of tinsel you have. Just only use like a very small amount. Since this pattern requires a lot of materials, it's going to be half of the flash is going to be hidden anyways. So just find something you like that's going to go good with tannic water. This is the Neverglades color, so it's kind of like a good Everglades backwater color pattern. And instead of splitting it, moving on the sides, I'll just keep it on top, just like that. I'm going to use another clump. Now we're going to start building a collar. Same material, about half the length of the tail. I'm going to do essentially one side, hold it flat against the hook. Kind of go on the other side. Just try to make sure you get all the way around the hook shank. There we go. When you get it where you like it, I'm just going to tie it down. We're switching colors. I'm doing some Congo hair and copper tan. These clumps are a lot different than the tail fibers. You can do short but thick clumps. Thicker than you normally would go with. This is because we are going to be building this material and stacking it in a way to cause resistance in the water. So think about it that way. It definitely makes it a little bit easier to put together the fly if you're thinking about bulk versus the other way I normally would suggest building a fly, which is less. This one is one of those ones you want to do with more. I start by just putting a clump right on top, pushing it down, getting it all the way around the hook, getting it in place, and just giving it a couple wraps. But you want to, before you crank it all the way down, you just want to make sure it's kind of spread around. That one looks really good. Get it really nice and tight. A couple tight wraps. And you're just going to simply push it back. Now instead of tying on top of the material, you're going to tie right in front. Put a little thread dam. You don't have to go crazy because we're just going to kind of keep this pattern going forward. Okay. If it flares out like that, that's actually, it's a good thing. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Very similar size clump. Doesn't have to be very long because we're going to trim that back. Same deal. Put on top. Put a couple loose wraps and push it, move it around. As you progress forward with this fly, all the materials want to grip the materials in front. So each time you put another batch of materials on the hook, you're going to want to make sure you take the time to move it in place because it'll get harder and harder as you go forward. And just kind of go back with it. When you feel that you hit the other material behind it, that's how you know you hit the spot. You stop and then you're going to bend this one back. You're going to tie it down in front. Tear this back. Make sure you're not pulling it all to one side or the other. Try to keep it evenly spread. I like to use the material coming off the bottom of the hook when I pull it forward so the materials will split on the hook point. And then I'm just going to make another thread dam right in front. It's looking pretty good. Alright, we're going to switch to our last color, which is going to be brown. Congo hair as well. Essentially you just want a heavier material with some volume. That way when you're stacking the fibers and you trim it down, it's going to be enough volume to push water. Then you have a softer tail, so you pull it forward, it's going to stop the fly because of resistance, and then the tail will swing around. And that's the whole idea behind the Muddler name. And also this particular fly to match up with the Muddler design in general. Same thing with the brown, we're just going to put it on soft, get it moving around. You can see here it's not wanting to spread, that's okay because we'll just kind of push it down and get it where we want it to. And crank it down tight, then tie back until you feel that you hit that material behind it. That's about it right there. And we're going to pull this back. Got enough room for one more stack, if not two. Make a thread dam. I'm gonna do one more. Just to make this one not near as long. Just take a little clump, about 2 inches long. It's just going to be trimmed back, but I still will taper it just in case some of the fibers can blend in with the stack behind it. Okay, I'm going to put it right on top. Loose wraps. Spread it around. As I crank it down tight, because this is the last one, if there's any you feel like there's not evenly distributed, now's the time to kind of fix that. But this one came out pretty even. I'm gonna bring it back till I hit the fiber behind it where I feel resistance. Now I'm going to spread this out and push it back. This is going to be the last one, so we're going to tie off after this. So you want to try to give yourself enough room to make sure you can do finish on it. Get a head in there, whip finish as well. Pretty good. Pull back really hard. There we go. Clamp it back just so I can get a whip finish without materials getting in there. Whip finish right in front. Double whip. Get it nice and tight, and then that's going to be it with tying materials. We're going to jump into trimming. You throw it like this, it's going to be hard to catch fish, but I'm sure something would eat it. Alright, when I start trimming it, I like to try to get all the materials basically together without moving around the hook shank. I'm going to start in a upward pattern, pulling to the sides. Just trying to keep at the same angle as I work around the hook. This allows you to shape the head in like a dome pattern, almost just like a baitfish would be. Getting there. I'm gonna kind of come in, just fine tune this head, and then we're gonna work our way back. Once you get a shape you're happy with, then we can move further back. Alright, when I go to trim the middle to the back of the fly, I want to try to keep all the fibers together so I can see the length of the fly. Make sure I'm not trimming anything like snapping the tail or anything like that. And I will continue on that same angle that I started with the head and kind of work my way back into a tapered look into the tail. Kind of get an idea. This thing's taking shape pretty good. Do it on the sides. I'm going to do one cut like that on all four sides. Like pulling the material to one side, getting the angle in, and then back. Almost a teardrop shape. Cut it straight back from the hook. I like to use the hook as a guide of how big I want the fly to be, what shape I want it to be. And that's looking not too shabby. Tail's a little cray-cray. Give it a cut. Continue working on these fibers here. If you're not getting a good taper on it, you want to just kind of keep working on it slowly until you find the taper you're looking for. Alright, I'm gonna put it back on the vise just so we can get some eyes on it, and you're pretty much set. Once you get a nice shape that you're looking for, you essentially want a dense head and a lot less dense tail. This allows it to move around. When you strip it, you can feel this thing just kind of pushing into the water, and that's going to allow fish to feel on the vibrations, ideally, and get a strike. Right. We're going to go with some 8mm eyes. This is where the different kinds of glues will really come into play. Once again, the Ultra Gel, what I go with, because it sits on top of the material, it's not going to, something really thin will just go right through it. Any kind of denser glue will do. Put it right there, just kind of like right on the hook shank, right in the middle of the head, and then just apply some pressure until it dries. Don't push too hard because it'll squish the head, but give it enough pressure to where it'll bind the fibers to that back of that eye. A little bit of squishing is okay, because if you don't push it hard enough, you won't get enough fibers on there, so the eye will just fall off. Okay. Do the other side the exact same thing. This particular pattern, as you're building up the head, it tends to use a lot of materials because you're cutting it back. Just try to, if you can, if you bring on a lot of materials like we did where it's longer, you can use that material for making dubbing brushes or dubbing loops, or just a pinch on smaller flies for dubbing. Or you can try to just build the fly with less material as far as length, but keep the density the same. You want the stacks of hair you're putting on to be the same density across, so you actually can get the fibers to stack. If it's not dense enough, they're going to lay flat and it's going to collapse the profile of the bait fish. There you have it.